So, my number one film that shaped my 2022 is They Live from 1988. This is a film directed by John Carpenter, starring Roddy Piper and Keith David. And the plot summary is they influence our decisions without us knowing it. They numb our senses without us feeling it. They control our lives without us realizing it. They live. Kind of cryptic. So I'm definitely going to go more into the movie because this plot summary really did not really summarize the plot. It sounded more like a marketing tagline.
Right.
So for me, 2022 really felt like a, a mask off moment for a lot of different things, where I think a lot of people and the masses sort of discovering and figuring out a lot of, I don't know how to say truths, but revelations throughout this year, that this movie to me then really is about a lot of that. So I felt this movie, which I've seen many times, like this is a movie I've seen, several times over the years. And this year I actually did a John Carpenter filmography rewatch. So during COVID, I picked up this habit where I'd pick a director who I really like, but I haven't seen every single one of his or her films, and go in and like fill the gaps. So for Carpenter, there was maybe like 5 or 6 of his films I'd never seen. So I went in and watched those, and then threw in some of my favorites, like They Live, did a rewatch of that, and The Thing. And yeah, They Live, it really hit me watching it this year, that we are in this time this year of all these revelations. So to kind of get a little into the plot, because the plot summary did not really explain things. This movie is set in the 80s in LA. And it's a drifter who discovers a pair of sunglasses that when you put them on, you realize you see the truth, and that aliens have been controlling the society for who knows how long, and they basically are brainwashing people. So when he puts on the glasses, the world from color changes into black and white, and he starts seeing, billboards. Instead of advertising some product, it would say consume. And he looks at money, and instead of, seeing George Washington there on the $1 bill, it's all black and white, and it says like, this is your God. So like, we worship money, and all these things that have been put into this, consumer capitalist society were put there by aliens, and everyone is sort of being brainwashed. But when they put the glasses on, the truth is revealed, and you understand you're under control. So I think for definitely this year, there are a lot of major kind of, I said mask off in the beginning, but I'll switch it up now that folks understand the context of the film, in case they hadn't seen it before. More of like a glasses on moment. So like major things like crypto, for example, was, seen as some great, amazing thing. And then this year we ended up that, hey, in fact, it was all just a marketing gimmick, a Ponzi scheme with some major collapses in the price of crypto. In tech, which is an industry we're both in, the metaverse was something that was thrown around a lot. And I think this year that has proven itself out to be a farce as well. Individual people like Elon Musk, who people had admired for many years, with buying Twitter, I think now, you see his approval ratings going down, stock price of his company is going down. People realize, oh, wait, actually, was this guy a moron the whole time? And, newsflash, he was. Also, some cultural things. I think work from home is something that was done during COVID, and now has been, I don't want to say a permanent thing. It's a hybrid space now, because there is this revelation. You know what? We don't really need to go into the office all the time anymore. We see the truth that it doesn't have to be something where we're tied to our desk 9 to 5 for some jobs. I mean, I think there are obviously some jobs, you're a fireman or a Starbucks barista. You obviously can't work from home. And even speaking of Starbucks, this is a big year for unions coming back. And in the United States, at least, they were viewed as something, not very popular. People were, very anti-union for a long time. And this year, I think finally the glasses are on again, and people, realize this is something that is important for companies like Starbucks and Amazon to unionize. So I think we're moving in this other direction now, because there is this, again, glasses on moment that we've really seen. Also there's a lot of different theories in history, like we live history in these 80-year cycles where some major event will happen, and then for 80 years the world will be a certain way, and then we'll transition out of that. And we're nearing that time we're in now, of this 80 years since end of World War II, that I think we are moving in a different direction, in a positive direction. I think this is all positive. As a society and a species. And I think a lot of that is involved in these, again, glasses on moments that this film really exemplifies. And I have to say, too, like watching this movie now this year, and again, I've seen it several times last, every couple years, I'll put this thing on maybe once a year, once every other year. It just feels so much more relevant than it ever has. So the great movies, I think, really stand up in that way. That it was trying to make a lot of commentary on, again, the greed of in the 80s and capitalism gone too far. And we're still there 30 years later. There's some scenes in the beginning of the movie with the police kind of destroying a homeless camp in downtown LA. And that stuff happens still, sadly, to this day. That the cops are fighting against the homeless folks here in LA. So it's just crazy. I watched this film this year during the rewatch. It's like, wow, this movie is more timely than ever before, even when it came out in '88. But also, I just think this movie's great. I think classic sort of sci-fi Carpenter film, and one of the best fight scenes in any movie history, like a 7-minute fight between Roddy Piper and Keith David, where Piper's trying to put the glasses on him to show him like that this is what's going on. The aliens are controlling us, and they just fight like in the street. It's pretty incredible fight sequence that still holds up, and I think you can say that it's commentary on the fact that those who control us, the 1%, have the the different races fighting against each other to keep them distracted from seeing the truth. I think that's the meta commentary of that, because Keith David is black and Roddy Piper is white. But yeah, this movie just really hit me this year during this rewatch of, wow, this is still the world we live in, but in a positive way. The movie too, like the end of the film, it's not like anything really changes other than the truth has been revealed to everyone. You don't really see what's going to happen. And I also feel like that's where we are now today too, where the truth has been revealed on these things. What we do with that is sort of up to us as a society. And I believe that we're headed in a better direction. I think all these things that have happened this past year are change for good. So I wanted to put something very optimistic to end the list on too. Like, I think this movie does have a sense of optimism at the end of the film, but that's They Live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never watched this movie. I'd heard of it. I actually have not watched a whole lot of John Carpenter's movies.
Okay.
As I'm
not one of your guys.
A big horror person, and that's what I've associated with him with. But this is obviously not a horror film, although you could argue that maybe it is of what is exposing.
That's true. Yeah. Societal horror or something.
Yeah. But yeah, everything you said sort of resonates, like the mask off or the glass on moment that we are in and what the movie is highlighting. It does feel relevant. I will say though, and maybe I need to watch this movie again. Again, we talk a lot about this. When are you watching these movies? Watching this movie now for the first time, maybe this is just a factor of the fact that this all feels very relevant, but it all feels just too on the nose to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
And maybe that is the point. I mean, this to me is, when you talk about B movies, like this is a B movie.
100%. Yeah.
And it's sort of very on the nose and just too obvious. And when that happens, I can obviously understand how, what the point is, but it also is distracting to me because it's just so on the nose that at some point it loses its weight and it sort of becomes more comical, and you sort of expect, your expectations are met in spades.
Right.
So that sort of is the one thing, but I don't know, maybe if I watch it over and over again, like you have, maybe all of that settles down, that feeling that I was just talking about, and then the truth of it sort of rises to the top, perhaps. And that's why, this is to me like a definition of a cult movie, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When it comes out, it has its detractors for all sorts of reasons, but even the people who like it, they sort of are maybe laughing with it or laughing at it in some way, because it's just so on the nose and obvious. But then over time, it develops this deeper significance and resonance. So hopefully that'll happen with me personally. That said, I had a great time. Like, I was not bored at all. Very entertaining, actually quite well done. The acting is obviously, what you expect from a movie like this.
Exactly.
That's not what this movie is about. Right. The fight scene was ridiculous.
It's classic. Yeah.
And of course, over time, I can see that the commentary of it, rises to the top. But when it was happening, I was like, really? This is ridiculous. And just, but it's also sort of fun to look at movies from that time. It's like such a time capsule movie in many ways, like the fashions and the streets, and as somebody who's lived in LA, and so that stuff was sort of fun in a way. So, but I had a very good time watching it.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned about the on the nose stuff, because it's, I think, a testament to the film that it was ahead of its time, and now we're in that time, so it feels like too obvious. I mean, I think
Yeah.
a lot of Carpenter's more political movies, and then also like Paul Verhoeven, who's another director that I really, really like. You look at some of his 80s and 90s movies, and we've now, the culture is now caught up to what he was saying in those films, and so it does feel a little bit like, oh, I get what you're doing now. Oh, RoboCop's about the public private partnerships, and how cops are being sort of taken over by corporations, and everything's about the money. In the 80s that might have been a new and bold thing to say, but now it's like, yeah, everyone knows that. Which I think is it's, I think, shows that these artists are, seen into the future a little bit. And I think this film for sure like resonates more today. So it is a lot more on the nose, because these are things that are kind of to the point of why I put this on the list in the first place. Like, society is now caught up to this film. Everyone has their glasses on, or not everyone, but the majority of us finally do now, even though back in 88, perhaps it was just John Carpenter when he wrote and directed this film. So yeah, I definitely can, see that this movie is even more cheesy than it might have been in the beginning, because the commentary isn't necessarily unique anymore. It just was is 30 years old.
Yeah, which is crazy. Well, glad to have watched it anyway.
Yeah. And again, I'm hoping that this is a positive for society as we move forward now, is my hope. And I have a lot of optimism for the future now that we know what's going on. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.